Good morning and a very warm welcome to Full Scottish, flagship programme of Broadcasting Scotland. This week we're joined by Sandra White, MSP for Glasgow Kelvin, and McEleny, SNP Councillor. Richard and I and our guests are going to be talking many things this week. Most importantly, what's happening in Spain, Cllr and Sante, and the fight against Cllr being extradited. Sorry. Happy Easter to you all, and without further ado, on with the show.
Good morning, my name's Richard Walker and welcome to Full Scottish, which is, just for clarity, an April Fool's free zone this morning because it's after 12 o'clock, so that's the rule. We were talking about this before we started, so there was a challenge to that rule by Chris, but...
No, I totally accept.
Do you accept the chairman's ruling that there are no April Fool's jokes?
I concede to age.
Okay, on with the show.
On with the show. So, as is our norm, we're going to start with the stories of the week. So, we'll come to you first, Sandra. What's caught your eye in the papers or the press?
Oh, lots and lots of things. But if I came back with the April Fool's situation, it would depend, if you're up early or not. And I know a lot of people who don't get up till after 12 o'clock. Some in my household. So I would query that one. So I'm not saying I would agree with the chair.
Challenge the chairman's ruling.
There's lots and lots of things going on. I'm going to bring a constituency focus to the show today. I want to talk about the situation in Victoria's nightclub, the workers there, obviously the Specsavers, Greggs and other businesses there as well, and what's happening with Sucky Hall Street. And perhaps, I don't think it's controversial, but would we be looking at putting sprinklers into these buildings? Maybe that would have saved the building. I don't know, but I think it's something that we should be discussing.
Yeah, definitely. Because it was a huge fire.
Huge fire, absolutely. And I think Victoria's is closed. Maybe for good.
It's closed, but it's not just closed, it's completely going to be demolished. That building will be demolished, and the knock-on effect it has on the workers there. I mean, I certainly know that Specsavers, Greggs and the other small business there, I spoke to them, and the workers there, they're actually being redeployed in other stores, so thankfully that's fine. But the workers of Victoria's, they've lost their jobs. I would hope that the management there would look at that to maybe get them redeployed somewhere else. Yeah. And there's a knock-on effect to Pavilion, of course.
Of course there is, yeah.
The oldest theatre, and I remember going there with my mother when I was tiny, sitting up in the gods and the big bits
and you wouldn't want to be scared
of
heights, would you?
There, when I was on about 4 or 5, and it's a place that has a real thought in the hearts of the people of Glasgow and out with as well. And it's a private company. It doesn't get money from government or Glasgow City Council, the Pavilion, unlike some other theatres. So I wish them well. I hope it continues to go on, but there is a real knock-on effect. Sprinklers is something we are talking about in the Scottish Parliament, but mostly for high-rise flats. I just wonder if we should be looking at it for theatres or that type of venue, where if there were sprinklers there, perhaps the building would have been saved. So it's something I think that's worth thinking about, and obviously the effect it's got in the whole of Sucky Hall Street now. I had a wander up there yesterday, pretty desolate at the moment. I know that we are putting in cycle lanes, etc. there, pedestrianisation, long overdue. It would be fantastic, but that part of Sucky Hall Street really needs refurbishment, a wee bit of love, a wee bit of care, and with that it's a bit of a tragedy. So these are things that I'm looking at, constituency based, but I think it's got knock-on effect for lots of other areas such as employment, sprinklers, and how safe. I mean, we had the masonry in Great Western Road just the other day there, fell off, hurt a lady walking down Great Western Road. How safe are the buildings? How safe are they? Maybe it's time Glasgow City Council looked at it and basically did a survey on all of the buildings over a certain age. I think it's long overdue.
Okay, Chris, your story of the week.
I would actually agree with Sandra there, because when you're talking about high-rise flats, for example, some modern high-rise flats you can actually evacuate quicker than some of the older buildings in Sucky Hall Street. We wouldn't name any particular companies, but you've got some 5 or 6 story theatres and cinemas. But who knows what would happen if there's a fire. But my moment of the week is the ongoing anti-Semitism storm with the Labour Party, in particular Jeremy Corbyn, which I think
it's not going away.
It's not going away, and I think it shows a really nasty element of British politics.
Sunday Times splashed today, I think it was a sort of secret the Corbyn hate group or something.
Yeah, I saw that, and you know, I think it's difficult to actually challenge that without people quite often preventing you making pertinent criticism of the regime in Israel.
Yeah.
And I think there is an element of that in the Labour Party because there is an internal dispute. But
would you say an element within the Labour Party which bristles at criticism?
Yeah, I think that there's an ongoing left versus right battle in the Labour Party, and I think this is very much bringing it to the fore. And the fallout of this will be that those on the left of the Labour Party will watch even further left, and those on the right of the Labour Party will seek cover on the right, which really means I think it will be even more difficult long term for Labour government to get elected, because the further to the left they go, they're only then talking to 25-30% of the population as a whole, so that's just unelectable, and it just means that we're probably then going to see even more Labour politicians on the right give Theresa May's government cover, which means Corbyn's leadership is going to be weakened further. He's going to find it very difficult to put any opposition up to the Brexit leave bill, and I think that there is wider repercussions, and I think it could be easily stopped if he just came out and gave a categorical answer that he completely opposes anti-Semitism. And I think he did sack the NEC members. I heard on the radio this morning. Hez Izzard's taking her place, I think.
So do you think that the criticisms are justified?
I think the criticism of saying that it's completely unacceptable if anybody's taking part in anti-Semitism is justified, and I think Corbyn's response has been slow, it's been weak, and that's not helped him. But if you actually delve back to where all this started, I think it started on a local Labour Party CLP's Facebook page, so really not reflective of their wider party, and people have then used that as an attack stick, which I think could have been stopped really on day one, but it's because he's allowed it to keep going, and I think it highlights that his parliamentary Labour Party are still split. But instead of having disputes based on just attacking him, they're now obviously using other avenues, which I think actually shows quite a nasty element, that some people are willing to use anti-Semitism as a political attack tool.
But it's quite difficult, isn't it? Because criticism of the Israeli state is sometimes, quite often, portrayed as being anti-Semitic per se, when really you've got to be able to.
Well, Israeli politicians have said that criticism of the Israeli state is anti-Semitism in and of itself, which clearly isn't. You've got to be able to criticise the actions. People have got to be able to criticise of any government without fear or favour. You've absolutely got to be able to do it.
I think particularly, obviously, the tragedy which happened, and we're going on to the Nakba, the tragedy which happened, I think we have to really focus on the fact that you can be critical of a government, but not critical of the people.
Yes.
And if you can't be critical of that, where is it freedom of speech? Where is democracy? I find it quite appalling that not all of the political parties have came out and criticised the actions of the Israeli government on the people in Gaza, who are suffering terribly, biggest prison, in the world, basically. What's wrong with criticising that? That's not anti-Semitic.
Absolutely.
That's just raising a fact that it is unjust and it's unfair, and people have to really tackle that. So I think that there's a fine line. Some people want folk to cross it, or they will accuse you of crossing it. But I don't see if you criticise a government. I criticise Westminster. I'm not criticising the rest of the people in Great Britain.
Yep.
I'll criticise, other countries as well. It doesn't mean that I'm anti. It just means that, as far as I'm concerned, what's happening in Israel to the people of Palestine is wrong.
Yeah,
and I think it's time people come out and spoke about it.
For Corbyn, though, do you think this really, as you say, makes Corbyn less electable or less likely ever to be Prime Minister?
Well, I think, what you really should do, I agree with. You've got to come out, you've absolutely got to stamp out anti-Semitism wherever it is, actual anti-Semitism, but there is this kind of, as you say, there's this sort of underground working within his own party of people trying to attack him on every single front. But I agree with Chris, with what Chris was saying. He's been too slow, so he should have come right out in front of it right away. So he's a sort of architect of his own destruction a wee bit in that one. But what's your story?
My story is a story in the Sunday Herald today, an essay by Tom Devine, in which he puts forward the suggestion that sectarianism in Scotland is pretty much over. His argument is that there is no real anti-Catholicism in Scotland, anti-Catholic feeling in Scotland. There's no real one in terms of Catholics aren't really discriminated against on the jobs front. They're not. They're able to earn as much money as anybody else can. So therefore, if you're talking about sectarianism in terms of people's lives being affected by it, it doesn't really exist anymore.
What do you think?
Discuss.
Okay, I would agree and disagree. I think, yeah, economic sectarianism, I think, is over. And I think it's maybe one gain I would give to the private sector over the last 50 years, because I think when perhaps there was large public bodies in charge of dishing out the jobs in this country and it wasn't your money, then you could easily give jobs to certain people. I think over the last 20 years, basically, people do get jobs on merit, and they get paid on merit as well. But sectarianism is we still see it across lots of different sectors of society. Maybe
Lots or one?
I think lots. I think whether it's getting called an FB when you're out socialising, which happens quite regular still to me. Whether it's some of the absolutely vile social media.
James Dornan got a horrible letter. Absolutely disgusting. That is sectarian at its absolute worst.
And of course, I mean that. Then,
and when he talked about it, people accusing him of making it up.
Well, that blows up in the media. But you would like to think 2018 that is just a very sick minority, and it's not reflective of Scotland as a whole. But I think that's why the Scottish Government's announced another £500,000 towards anti-sectarianism charities initiatives, because we recognise it is still a problem that we need to tackle at the root cause, which is through education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a great deal of respect for Professor Devine, basically, but I can't agree with them on this particular one. I do think it is still rife. It wasn't that long ago, and one of the councils in Lanarkshire, where you were given a different coloured piece of paper depending on what your religion was and whether you would get a job or not. I think it still goes on, basically, but we see it in the streets, and unfortunately we do see a lot of it at football matches. Living in the Merchant City, we see it. When there's a football match on, they may not, show it at first, but as they're marching back down, particularly going to certain areas, up near the barriers or whatever it may be, you see it all the time, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. And as education, it's got to come from the families. I mean, I went round schools at one point talking about it. I was pretty appalled at sectarianism on both sides. I was really pretty appalled from some of the kids in the school. They weren't bad kids. It was just what they had learned behaviour. So it really starts in the home. And we've got to have education in that respect. I think it's still a problem, and we've got to tackle it.
Absolutely too. I mean, I remember when I was at school, a couple of years ago, obviously. But it was a huge problem. I went to a Catholic primary school, and it was absolutely a problem, but very much more in your face. I think things have changed. But it's still there. I think, I don't agree with the professor on this one either. I mean, a lot of the, following on from what you're saying about the Scottish Government putting money, there's a lot of great work being done. The Glasgow Women's Library did a big project called Cllr, and really trying to educate, and Gender's done a lot of work on it as well, because it also is well, we know that when sectarianism comes in, and then alongside football, and it is how it manifests itself in the west of Scotland. We needn't kid ourselves, we all know it's how it manifests itself. And again, we talked briefly there about James Dornan, but I had a wee read, and the people that were criticising him and calling him a liar, every single one of them, almost a man, had some sort of Rangers logo in their thing. Now that's this, and I'm not saying, of course, it could just as easily be the other way about. There is no one side worse than the other, but it does still happen, and that's how it manifests itself.
Absolutely.
And James was I don't think he's a victim, I don't mean that, but in the victim in this instance, that he received a really horrible letter, and then to bring that out to see if anybody else and try and tackle it, to be called a liar and have even more sectarian abuse thrown at him.
I suppose the final point is worth remembering that sectarianism is still facilitated via legislation in this country through the Act of Settlement is inherently a piece of sectarian legislation.
Which forbids a Catholic to be...
And it refers to us as a papish faith. And that's maybe an issue that we still need to examine previously. Made attempts to have the Act of Settlement changed, but that seems to have died away over the last few years.
Yeah, Mike Russell was pushing that as well. You're absolutely right, it's a very good point to bring up, but it may be that we don't see it in the streets, but obviously social media is where it is more rife, and Suzanne's absolutely right with the tweets that come in. The police put out warnings saying, even if you tweet this, we can find you. And that's the way it's got to be, to get rid of the anti-sectarianism, in the Scottish Parliament through legislation. It's going to take a lot of hard work. But to get rid of one part of legislation without replacing it with something, I think was irresponsible. it should have been kept until we had something else in its place.
Yeah.
But I do think social media is where it is all at the moment, and people think they can hide behind that, not necessarily get out in the streets.
Okay, Suzanne.
My story of the week, well, I've been following some bad news and some good news stories. So I was following the rape trial in Ulster with the Ulster rugby players, with Paddy Jackson most numerably found not guilty at court this week. So, but what I found the most interesting part of this story was the outpourings of support for this young woman who came forward and did the right thing. You know, she reported the case, she went there, she listened through weeks, she was embarrassed, her sex life was pulled apart, her underwear was passed around courts, the WhatsApp, I mean, my personal opinion is they should have been being tweeted out instantly, and we have to face the fact that this is like toxic masculinity. It's these footballers. I'm thinking back to the Ched Evans case, and the same thing with this Paddy Jackson case. But what really interested me was almost instantly people tweeting, "I believe her, I'm on her side," but then Mr Jackson's lawyers apparently threatened to sue anyone who said "I believe her." So it started a new hashtag called "Sue Me Paddy," where a lot of prominent people were saying.
Hillary Clinton.
We thought, and a lot of prominent people saying "Sue me Paddy" and going on to say. So I found that quite, because what I think really terrifying is when we see big cases like this, how many women will now not come forward.
And you know, Suzanne, it did split opinion, and sadly, if you look at the sex or how it split opinion, it was majority of women, were absolutely in supporting the women, and there was a lot of men actually saying, well, this wasn't rape. And I think that's something that as a society we need to then address, because I read those transcripts, and do you know what? I'll be honest, that probably happens across every town and city every single weekend in Britain. And if the courts are telling us it's not rape, then we're all agreeing that it's abhorrent behaviour, then what is it? And how do we tackle that going forward as a society to make sure that, again, education, how do we make sure that young men realise that that's not acceptable behaviour?
It's like a lad culture, and unfortunately it's not a good lad culture.
It's a lad culture that's been there for decades.
Yes, we thought we were getting over it.
We did. Anyway,
moving on. So we're about to have a package. Obviously, what's been on all our lips, we've stayed away from it for our stories a week. But obviously, the main issue of the story of this week in Scotland certainly has been Cllr Ponsante, and she's instructed Amar Anwar and co to fight the extradition. So we're about to have a little package put on.
We are now at the Edinburgh Sheriff Court at the city centre in Edinburgh, where Cllr Ponsante is expected to arrive at 2 in the afternoon. She surrendered earlier on at half-time this morning at St Leonard's Police Station, not too far from where we are now.
The lawyer for Professor Cllr Ponsante. After we enter the police station, my client will be formally placed under arrest. The European arrest warrant will then be served upon her, and Clara will be transferred to Edinburgh Sheriff Court, where she will appear from custody. The Spanish authorities wish to extradite Clara on charges of violent rebellion and misappropriation of public funds for helping to organise the referendum. My legal team is instructed to robustly defend Clara as she views these charges as political persecution and a systematic attempt to crush the spirit of the Catalan people and their desire for freedom. She does not believe that the Spanish courts guarantee independence, human rights or justice. Clara remains defiant, resolute and is determined to fight back. She wants to thank the many hundreds of thousands of ordinary people, especially in Scotland, who have shown her such love and support. She is truly humbled by the unconditional support from students, colleagues and the principal at St Andrews University. Clara wishes to thank Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish Government and politicians for their solidarity. Scotland has been a true friend to Catalonia in her darkest hours. However, it is absolutely right that the independence of the judiciary in Scotland is respected and that no government should ever interfere in that process. Clara accepts her fate now lies in the hands of the Scottish justice system. A hearing for the extradition will take place at 2 p.m. today where we will apply for Clara Fossati to be released on bail, and there will hopefully be a statement released following that outside the courtroom. There will be no further comment. Thank you. A colleague of mine will have copies of this press statement if you require a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Spain is a signatory to the European Convention on Human Rights, so there is almost an implicit acceptance that Spain deals in human rights and that the courts are independent. However, this is a peculiar situation, it's a unique situation that we have a neighbour on our doorstep that has conducted itself in such a manner. Spain, in the last several months, has been repeatedly criticised for the manner in which it has dealt with the people and has been accused of systematically criminalising the aspirations of the Catalan people for independence. And that is our instructions from Clara on that basis, the manner in which the police, the security services, the manner in which the ministers have dealt with. Our real concern is this, that Clara Fossati, the same as every other minister who is presently either in exile or by the government before they have even got to a court.
I'll start that again. I have a statement to read on behalf of Professor Clara Fossati, who appeared today from custody on Spain's European arrest warrant. Clara instructed us to oppose the extradition warrant received from the Spanish Supreme Court and to robustly deny the charges. The 52-page warrant included the crimes of rebellion, punishable by up to 25 years in prison, as well as the crime of misappropriation of public funds, punishable with up to 8 years imprisonment. Clara wishes for me to state that these charges are politically motivated and a grotesque distortion of the truth. She cannot believe that she is being held responsible for the violence that took place on the day of the referendum. She believes that the Catalan people tried to express a democratic right to decide their own destiny. And the only people that should be held responsible for the brutal violence was the Spanish police and the 6,000 state security forces to attack the Catalan people on behalf of the Spanish government. She submits that Spain has not followed due process, cannot guarantee the independence of the judiciary, and has repeatedly abused the human rights of the Catalan people. As proceedings are live, we will not go into the details of the defence. Clara is pleased that bail was granted by the Scottish courts and grateful for the respect and the dignity she was given by Police Scotland and the Scottish Court Service. A hearing has been set for the 12th of April. Please note that this will not be a full hearing. The last few days have been difficult, and Clara knows that there is a long road ahead. But she is truly humbled by the hundreds of thousands who have supported her, contributed to the legal fund, and also wishes to thank the Scottish Government. Scotland, you have been true friends to the people of Catalonia in their darkest hours. Clara respects the fact that her fate now lies in the hands of Scotland's independent judicial system. This is what should happen in a democracy. Thank you.
Why were you here today?
I was here because I think it's disgraceful that in the 21st century we have political prisoners in Europe.
Well, I'm here to give support to Clara Fossati. I was fortunate enough to be allowed to go to Catalonia to act as an independent observer at the referendum in October of last year, and I saw firsthand the violence from the Spanish state against people who wanted to exercise their democratic right to vote for self-determination.
So those were the scenes in Edinburgh on Wednesday. Broadcasting Scotland did a special show on this on Monday, and Amar Anmarki went to tell us about the case for the defence. Clearly this will take some months to play out, so there's a lot of twists and turns to come. If you want to see that interview, you can still see it on broadcastingscotland.scot and look at the programmes button and press it, and you'll see a whole range of programmes, including a special report on Clara's position. Sandra, you've been out to Barcelona.
Can I just quickly pop in to say that there is also, Clara has a crowdfunder, so we'll tweet that link again if anybody feels so inclined. It's going to take a lot of money to fight this case. A lot of the crowdfunder is doing fantastically well. People in Scotland have taken Clara to their hearts and this issue, fighting democracy, but it's going to take a lot of money, and no matter how much money there is, there's going to be more needed. So we'll be tweeting some links to donate to Broadcasting Scotland. We'll also be tweeting links to donate to Clara's crowdfunder. Sorry to interrupt.
That's
Not
good,
at all.
a good interruption there.
I was going to mention that anyway, the crowdfunder. Basically, yeah.
Sorry, Sandra.
No, it's all right. No, not at all.
No. So you were in Barcelona in February?
I was there in February. I was there for the referendum in October.
Yeah.
I'd been previous referendum also as an international observer. I went out in February for a week. We had 3 days meeting the people we'd met before. I don't want to name them in case they
end up in jail.
Or whatever it may be. We met with them and then we had a couple of days in Barcelona seeing that beautiful city, basically. So yeah, interesting times, worrying times as well. Suzanne mentioned the fundraiser, crowdfunder. It was absolutely amazing. Over £215,000 raised in a couple of hours.
I think the fastest crowdfunding effort
yes,
we've seen.
That's what it says. So it was absolutely unbelievable there. And I think something that people seem to forget, something we really have to remember. October, the referendum, what happened there, the violence, etc., absolutely disgusting. That was called. We went through for that. The next referendum was called by the Spanish government. Now we've got to remember that. It wasn't the Catalonians that called this. The results of the October referendum were pretty clear, basically, but they didn't like the results, Spanish government, Rajoy. They brought in another referendum, so we've got to remember that. It wasn't the Catalonia that says, right, we're going to have another one off our own backs. They called it, still didn't like it, and then started to arrest people. Now, we really need to seriously look at our consciences, not just here in Scotland, but throughout the EU. Why are we letting that happen? In a European country, if that was happening in Turkey, Russia even, which is obviously very newsworthy at the moment, would be crying out for the fact that these people should be put out of this and they should be arrested. Silence, absolute silence from the rest of the EU. Now at the moment, Puigdemont is in Germany, he's in jail, he's not been extradited, but people are calling on, you know, let him go on bail, like Clara was put on bail. And that's the right thing to do. I'm not going to get into the legalities of it because obviously Amar has spoken about that. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have laws of sedition in Scotland. They were actually, you know, outlawed in 2010 for an act of the Scottish Parliament. So we don't have law of sedition in that respect. What about, you know, your human rights under EU law, which obviously Spain is a part of? What about these EU rights? These will all be put forward by the lawyers, but these are the things that I'm, you know, raising it and highlighting the fact that your European citizen could happen to any of us here. Go over there, you're going to get arrested. It really is very, very worrying, and I can't understand why the rest of the EU, you know, European Commissioner, why are they not intervening and say, stop, this is enough? We had old ladies beaten up. You saw it just there.
Did you see it yourself when you were in
I was very fortunate, didn't see it at all. We were just kept the school we were at. We saw the, you know, the police vans would circle round. People were absolutely terrified. It was happening in a school round the corner from us. People were getting phone calls. The girl that was assaulted, she was actually sexually assaulted. The girl got all her fingers broken. That was one of her friends at the school with us, and she was absolutely shocked and in tears. She was on the phone to her in the mobile while we were protecting the school. But she was actually sexually assaulted, that young girl, when she was pulled down those stairs. So it was very worrying with people who had family in Grazia, where there was a lot of, you know, things happening there as well. So we really need to examine our consciences and say, do we actually think this is proper at this day and age? And I think the big problem is that when Spain was brought into the EU, allowed to be part of the EU, whatever it may be, part of the beginning of the EU, they came in under a Franco government, and it's continued on. It's a legacy of Franco, and most of the people who are in the judiciary, head of police, etc., we all know that. These people were part of Franco's government through either there. Let's remember, it's not that long ago. It's the 70s. It's only the 70s. It's still fresh in people's minds threats that were given to older people when we were over there in the first referendum and in the one in October was, do you want to go back to the days of Franco? You know, we've seen it here in us as well. You won't be able to speak to your relatives in England if you become independent. The threats were made to older people who could remember Franco, who lived through Franco. But this time when we spoke to a number of older people, they said, this is worse, actually worse than living under Franco. They were actually pretty terrified, but determined. Determined. And another thing I think we really need to remember is, when we were in that school, we had people who came in with the Spanish flag. They were clapped into the polling station. They told us they were voting no, but nobody said hitting against them. They say, thank goodness, that's great. Please, it's all about being allowed to vote, and it's becoming muddied. So I fully support, you know, the Catalonian people and their right determination, but also I'm deeply worried and deeply ashamed of the EU for what's happening.
Could I come in on that point and bring you back to the 23rd of June 2016? So when I went to vote in the EU referendum, I weighed up both sides, and I thought, the EU, it's good for jobs in Scotland, it's good for our economy, it's good for young people and their right to travel, it protects pregnant mothers' rights in the workplace, employment legislation. So those were the reasons I voted to remain in the EU. But that other side is exactly what we're saying here, that bureaucracy that doesn't act when it should act. And I think it is appalling that the EU Commission isn't actually taking steps to basically tell the Spanish government that its actions are completely against the principles of the EU. I mean, this is 2018 and we are trying to lock up politicians for having a political view and actually enacting a democratic process, which is unacceptable. But I think Kenny McCaskill did make a good intervention in one of these interventions that he makes on a weekly basis. He's got a weekly column. It's not criticism.
Not all of them so welcome.
Yeah, well, I thought this one particularly was welcome in that he said we need to avoid this becoming a proxy for Scottish independence.
Absolutely.
Because you will see many support almost a homogenous group of independent supporters giving solidarity to the people of Catalonia. But on that other side of the debate, people that probably identify themselves as unionists or have voted no, people are talking about let's all make sure we book our package holidays to Spain. Some of the ridicule in this is ugly.
Murdo Fraser
in particular. So I think we need to avoid that. But I think, Sandra, you know yourself, coming to your constituency, that the Labour movement had a proud tradition of sending young men from Glasgow and Greenock and across working class communities in Scotland to fight against Franco. And I'm not calling the Spanish government a fascist regime, but it's acting like a fascist regime. And I think it's appalling that members of the Labour movement are failing to stand up and be counted and actually call that out for what it is.
Yeah, that's the bit that I just couldn't understand. Whether you believed in self-determination for the Catalonian people or Scotland or whatever, it's become so polarised. Not one single Labour MSP, not one, signed a motion, called it out. Well, we've had Catherine Cllr, who's an MEP, obviously, in that respect, and we had ex-MSP Malcolm Chisholm calling it out. But why? It's not a polarised, it's about democracy in the EU and the future. I don't know about everybody here, but people I've been talking to, number of people who are very pro-EU are starting to think, I don't know if I want to belong in the EU if it's like that. And I think we need to
there's an
talk
important
about
point
that.
there, because there are so many great benefits of being an EU citizen, which we've just spoke about. But if we allow the European Union to basically go to sleep while political prisoners have been taken on our watch, I think that makes it very difficult for us going into a future independence referendum. Promoting the European Union is a positive when people clearly have a distaste in how they've been behaving.
Well, there's also a distaste even with what happened in Greece before. I mean, as an awful lot of people, myself included, that went in and voted to stay in the union, but held my nose a wee bit. You know, it wasn't a joyful vote.
I've always believed in it though. I mean, I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
But genuinely worried at the fact that what's happening and they're doing nothing, and the damage this is doing to the EU.
Well, I read in the New European that the Franco, the famous sign, the Victor sign, has started reappearing in the streets.
Absolutely, yes.
That's absolutely terrifying. I mean, that sign is as ugly as the swastika and everything that happened under McEleny. These are dangerous. And as you say, Sandra, it's not long ago. This is very dangerous. And likewise, you know, the risk of being a cliche is all that's needed for evil to prevail is good men do nothing.
But there's an argument, I think, that the other EU countries aren't saying anything. But if Scotland was, pardon me, if Scotland was an independent country and a member of the EU, then perhaps we would be speaking up. And perhaps because the UK isn't, perhaps we would be speaking up. Perhaps because we've seen how we're dealing with Clara's situation here. No handcuffs. Police being very respectful. That would probably not, well, would certainly not be the case in many other European countries. We'll see how Puigdemont is treated in Germany. So I think in a way, you know, you're right, it makes the arguments for independence different, but there is an argument to say, well, Scotland could be a voice of reason.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it is mutually inclusive. We shouldn't be thinking, well, we need to be cautious because as a future EU state, Spain would be a fellow EU nation. I think we should be critical of a friend when required. That's what a real friend does. Real friends don't go into silence and allow people to do absolutely anything and just march all over democracy. That's not what happens.
Suzanne always tells me when I'm wrong.
Can
we turn seemingly? Can we turn now to the SNP Deputy Leadership? Chris?
Are we getting an exclusive off Sandra? so we're past the April Fool's.
But I was going to say that.
We have 4 candidates. Chris, you're one of them, and you're the third one that we've interviewed on this programme. You stood at the last Deputy Leadership contest as well. What has changed between then and now that you think you've got a better chance?
Well, the Deputy Leader resigned. Obviously, has been the first thing.
The competition took himself off.
Which is a really important point, actually, because Angus Roberts is a magnificent politician, and I think it's an absolute travesty that he's not in Westminster holding Theresa May and her cronies to account.
But to his credit, to interrupt you, but to his credit and to the credit of the SNP, he has not done what, as same as Alex Salmond and some other notable people, he's not went and took up the ermine and robes and sat in the House of Lords, you know.
Well, so absolutely. You know. But I think it's important to reflect that Angus got, I think, 52.6% of the vote at the last time round. So clearly, an overwhelming majority of SNP members actually believed in what he was promoting at the time, and he beat Tommy, who finished not too close in second place. So I think what's different this time around is that I still fundamentally believe in the message that I was promoting the last time round. And I think with that experience that I've gained from Angus, I really think that we need to put communities at the heart of a future independence campaign. I've learned lessons over the last few years, and absolutely, I will not hide the fact that I speak from the left of the political spectrum. But I'm not trying to impose left-wing policies on this party. I just think it's important that people know that that's where my position comes from. But the first thing I would do as Deputy Leader, which I think people actually need to understand in terms of how our structures work, is I would ask the leader of the party, what does she want me to do as her deputy? Because it is a one-member, one-vote system in our party, but I think it's fundamentally important that the Deputy Leader is there to support the leader of the party going forward. And of course that's why we'd have that conversation. But going forward, I think that we are coming to a position, and we've just spoken about Europe, that come the autumn time, I think we need to firm up our position on a future independence referendum. Come October...
Do you think it's a bit woolly?
No, I don't think it's woolly, but I just think that Article 50 was triggered in March of 2017, so we're leaving the European Union in March of 2019. And if we get to October time, which is about 6 months before that leave date, and the Tory government are still unable to tell us the terms of leaving the European Union, well, I think alarm bells start ringing for people in Scotland that actually we're going off the edge of a cliff and we've not even got a captain at the helm of the ship. So I think come October, I think Nicola's said already on record that she will look again and determine what best...
October 2018.
October this year.
Yes.
Let's look again at what best protects Scotland's interests. Is it having that independence referendum so that the people of Scotland can have a choice? And I think Europe is just a catalyst. It's not the main reason. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why Scotland should be independent. The number one being making their own decisions. And I think come October, we will make that decision whether we're going to have an independence referendum in the term of this Parliament, or whether we'll perhaps campaign in 2021, and that will be the main reason to vote.
I feel as though I'm getting an exclusive interview with a candidate because I was waiting until the 5th of May. Obviously, we've got in Glasgow, we've got hustings with all the candidates. But thanks, Chris, for that, and for your left-wing credentials as well. You mentioned you would ask Nicola as a leader, and you'd be the deputy leader, what she wants. But you also mentioned it's about communities and about obviously the people on the ground. I've been a grassroots activist all my life, basically. That's how I got involved in the SNP. So before you ask Nicola which you would want, what would be your take on, you know, the SNP headquarters being a wee bit more going out to basically the communities? I mean, for example, I will put a newsletter out, an e-brief out, others will put X, Y and Z out. Generally, I think headquarters should be giving us this message that all branches can put out. And basically, maybe the top line would be, what has the UK ever done for you? Rather than us always being on, not always in the back foot, but feel as though we're answering all the time.
I mean,
I might ask you that on the 5th of May, but
that's a good question. Is that the Glasgow hustings I think?
It is.
So, well, there's only 8 this time. There was 40 the last time. Suzanne, you were at many of them. There was 40 the last time. It was enjoyable.
Well, it was fun, but it was tiring.
Fair clock the miles up on the car, didn't we? Which, you know, the last debate was actually good, and I think this one will be the same. We were carpooling, going to debates. We were sharing train journeys, we were sharing fish suppers, maybe, and Peebles, etc. And I think it will be the exact same this time round. Whereas, you know, we're talking about the SNP Depute Leader contest, that's obviously why I'm here, but, you know, the Labour Party don't have a Deputy Leader at the moment, a Deputy Leader, and there's not even a mention of that contest. And there's probably a reason why there's no mention of that, because it's probably going to be another left versus right divide. So I just think that's important, that this contest again will show people in Scotland that we're a democratic party. We all get on with each other, but we've maybe just got a difference of what the job should be. And I think each of the candidates actually sets out quite well what the job should be. Keith is clearly making a good picture on the economy, and he's been doing a good job on the economy. I personally just think that that is his day job that he has to focus on. Whereas, going back to communities, I think we need to build up a new community in favour of independence, and that's communities in terms of town hall by town hall, but it's also communities in terms of business, teachers, trade unionists. We need to start bringing these people together again, and I think we need to get match fit and have another drive this summer, so that when it comes to October and Nicola's going to actually make that decision, we're in a position that if we're going to have another independence referendum, we're in a position that we've actually put the groundwork in all through the summer, we've put the hard hours in. Going back to your point on headquarters, it's an important point. Maybe people watching this show maybe pick up that point, but 95% of SNP members, like any political party, don't actually go to branch meetings. They just like being part of the cause, like putting their support in, they like voting SNP, they like supporting their local candidates. And that's why I don't think in a deputy leader contest, if we're having a public debate, maybe we're on TV, we're talking in newspapers, I don't think we should be talking internal process issues that probably the majority of people that we need to get on side of voting SNP. And there's only 1,150 odd days for the next Scottish Parliament election, and I firmly believe there will be an independence referendum. And I think the conversations we need to have is how independence and how continuing to vote SNP helps support communities across Scotland. And you know yourself, in government we're doing that. There's a reason that we're in our third term in government and we're still far ahead in the polls, and that's not arrogance, it's because we're still listening to communities across Scotland. And you know, not all governments are perfect, but we've got a party structure that I think, you know yourself, Sandra, as an MSP, we can hold our own government to account. So people in this country see that, well, you know, lots of people are never going to vote Tory because they destroyed a lot of our industry. The Labour Party are still, I think, a laughing stock in terms of an opposition. We're actually capable of holding ourselves to account and continue to deliver for people across every community in Scotland. And as time goes on, and I think we make cases for, well, look, the 11 new powers on social security, we deliver them better. We're clearly going on a different path to the Westminster government when it comes to social security, whether it's the NHS, whether it's education. We're clearly delivering better when the people of Scotland make decisions that matter to the people that live here. And I think that's the key case, whether it's Brexit, whether it's Tory governments being imposed upon us, whether it's a power grab on Brexit. The fundamental principle is that decisions made here in Scotland are better decisions for the people of Scotland. And when we take that argument again this summer to every community across this country, I firmly believe that we will bring together a new community to deliver independence in our time.
Lovely.
What? No.
Can I wait?
Bring it on.
So what is the deputy leaders, or if you were deputy leader, how would you interpret that role in terms of independence? If I'm interpreting you correctly, you're saying that the independence drive, or the drive to independence or to get match fit for the next referendum would fall under the deputy leader's remit. Is that is that what you're?
Well, Stuart Hosey back in was Stuart when he was deputy leader, was he not?
He was, but he was as a person. I don't think it was.
There was talk of Stuart being the man.
If you remember, after 2014, we had a 2015 election, we had a 2016 election, we had an EU referendum, we had a council election in 2017 and another UK government election. So the elephant in the room, for as much as we believe in independence and it will improve people's lives in this country, there was always another election coming. Every single year, some years too, well every year actually too, there was an election or a referendum. There isn't actually an election on the calendar until 2021. So I think now, as a party of government, Sandra is obviously a testament to that. We're delivering for the people of Scotland every single day, and at Westminster we have a team of SNP MPs standing up with that Tory government. So our job, every single member, and I think the Deputy Leader's job, is to actually go out to the communities across Scotland and start making the case for independence. That's our job. The government's job is to govern for Scotland. It's our MP's job to get down there and make sure we're getting a good deal for Scotland. I think it's the SNP's Deputy Leader's job to lead that new community for independence across the country, actually promoting the arguments, because quite often we get into the argument of when there should be a referendum and how there should be a referendum and how we facilitate that, but we need to remember the number one reason is why we should be independent. It's so that we can make decisions about our own future going forward. You know, we keep hearing people telling us, well, you know, not every SNP member believes in the European Union, but I think most SNP members and voters believe in their right to determine whether we are remaining part of the EU or we're leaving it. It's our decision. It should be the people of Scotland that make decisions on pensions, on the EU, on fisheries, which of course is, it could have been story of the week, because you know the fishermen have been sold in the river, and next it will be the farmers, it will be the common agricultural policy, then it will be workers' rights, then it will be pregnant mothers' rights in the workplace, then it will be your right to paid time off. Theresa May will pull every single one of these powers back to Westminster, and there's going to come.
Do you think we should use? Sorry for
no, not at all.
No, right? Because you said a very interesting thing at the beginning in regards to trade unions, workplaces, etc. And that's a big difference between us and Catalonia, because they have huge movements within the trade unions. But you're absolutely right, and I don't really like negative campaigning. I like positive campaigning. But sometimes I think you've got to use that. Take the likes of social security powers, as you mentioned there, pensions, and also workers' rights. Now, the Labour Party voted against the Scottish Parliament having that power. So do you think it would be perfectly, well, I think it's perfectly within my rights, but in party right, when they're pushing for the referendum, to mention the things that, you know, the unionist parties have not supported. We can have had these powers.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we need to tell people
I come from a part of Scotland that's got the second lowest life expectancy in the UK, and I think well, Glasgow's the third lowest, so I think your constituency will be quite similar to Inverclyde. And people in parts of the southeast of England have an average life expectancy of in the region of about 13 years longer than people in areas of Scotland. So I think the first question is, can we get our money back in terms of how much we're contributing every single year? But that's very negative. But it can also be a positive, because, you know, there is a different way we can deliver things in Scotland. And a one-size-fits-all model for the entire United Kingdom based on what suits the needs of the southeast of England just quite simply doesn't work for Scotland. So whether it's on pensions, whether it's on a living wage, which, you know, we the powers, we would make the living wage the minimum wage. But we can't do that because we don't have the powers for that, because the UK government wants to hold on to those powers, and it wants to grab a whole raft of new powers to hold on to as well when they come back via the Great Repeal Bill.
A lot of the viewers, I think, will have noticed as well the video that was doing the rounds on social media, Pete Wishart talking to the immigration minister, and the smug look on that woman's face, and comparing Scotland to a county council. Whereas it doesn't seem that long ago that we heard David Cameron saying, you know, you put the great in Great Britain. It doesn't feel the family of nations, and now we're a county council. You know, just
Gordon
just
Brown told us we shouldn't leave the UK, we should lead the UK, but all these people have left the scene. I mean, Alistair Darling and his Plan B is off to find his Plan B. Anyone else that was
the airmen in robes.
Anyone else that was part of that campaign has either been knighted or gained a peerage, and these people have abandoned their sinking ship because they were willing to sell their principles to win a vote on that day. But, you know, nothing's changed.
A bit like how the union began.
Bought and sold, as
bought and sold.
Pass our votes in the nation.
Oh, sorry, did you want to come in? You know, I think people, you know, keep going back to the basics, and for me, I think it's just, you know, basic. There's just under 6 million people now in Scotland. There's 60 million people in the rest of the UK. These simple mathematics, a 2-year-old Wayne would be able to tell you, oh well, 6 million into 60 million, we're not going to get a fair deal. So I'm really, I mean, I go round the doors and I'll chat the doors and I'll say this to people And I use an analogy like, okay, say there's a game, a Scotland-England game, who do you want to win? Scotland. Okay, you've got one Scottish player, you've got 11 English players. Who do you think is going to win this game? England. I think, well, that's exactly what happens here in this country, because we've only got 6 million against 60 million. So therefore, our voice is never heard. So do you think that's a good way of putting it across? Should we go back to that basic?
Can I just go back to the deputy leadership?
Yep.
Your vision of it, because I just want to clarify. Are you saying that Scottish Government has got a lot of jobs, a lot of plates? Yeah. One of its jobs is to run the country, and it's been concentrating on that, and that's been called...
Job, some would say.
Well, some people say that, call it the day job, but we could dispute that. So therefore, while it's busy running the country, who is going to be in charge of the independent stuff? And you're saying the deputy leadership should be, so in a sense you're kind of like having two wings, one wing running the country and one wing campaigning for independence. Is that
if we rely on only people that vote SNP to deliver independence, Scotland will never be an independent country, because we need to bring together a whole new community of labour voters, people from trade unions, people from business, people from teachers, and we need to build that, and I think we need to start building that again now. In 2014, one of the best things about being part of that campaign was meeting so many different people from so many different varieties of life. I mean, you remembered yourself, you'd been a Yes Hub, and you'd have an 85-year-old pensioner coming in to pick up 200 newspapers to deliver. Then you would have a pregnant mum in a pram coming in 2 minutes later to pick up some leaflets. That was a campaign for every single person in Scotland.
Yes.
Those Yes Hubs still exist. I mean, Suzanne and I would go to some of the national roadshows, and we go to Yes Hubs, which are very strong, very active, and more are growing, and they're opening shops and
you still see the Yes Band on Saturday night. If you don't want to sit down, people are still there, and it's not just SNP voters. And I think what you were saying about there being all the elections, and by its very nature, party politics divides people. So that was it was very difficult to feel pally with people, I suppose, that you were competing against or trying to vote against, but that's got those that are out the road at the time, so it's time to bring the band back together a wee bit, and you see people in Greens and lefties and all, people are starting to do it again.
There are local Yes groups starting up across Scotland, so
I think though there's a frustration that there's not, I suppose, a campaign now, and I'm not saying that anybody necessarily wants a referendum campaign. Let's start now and let's have a referendum in 3 months' time or 3 weeks' time. But I think there seems to me anyway detect a frustration. People saying, well, when
people want a general kind of thing,
something. That's the nature of being the party of government. It's the First Minister's job, first of all, to be the First Minister of all Scotland, and of course Brexit is that elephant in the room. And she didn't come out on day one and say that's it, we're going to be independent. The Scottish Government put forward a whole raft of proposals that said, look, if we're leaving the European Union, here's how we're actually supporting that, and every single one of those was rejected. So it's not as if we've just said, like, that's it, we're throwing the toys at the pram. The government's went through a step-by-step process to actually try and make Brexit work for Scotland, but the reality is it's not going to work for Scotland. So as people have been frustrated because, sorry Sandra, people want to see maybe Nicola Sturgeon and Sandra, MSPs, councillors, SNP representatives out campaigning every single day for independence, but the reality is we've got to make sure we're representing our constituents first. We've got to, especially in government, we've got to be pragmatic and make sure that we're trying to seek consensus. But when we get this, and that's why I think autumn's an important timetable, when we get the autumn, in reality it's every single item that we put forward to try and get the best deal possible for Scotland out of Brexit has been rejected. I think we're in a position that we need to actually say there is an alternative way, and you made the reference to bringing the band back together, but I think we need to get the clarinets and the tubas, the guitars and the drums out well before then.
See, when you talk about bringing the band back together again, obviously it was the most fantastic time. Everywhere. Didn't matter where you went, people were happy. People were confident. It was wonderful. That's what it was. Hope and aspirations. Obviously, we had the Yes movement, and it wasn't run by a individual party. And that was the point I'm trying. Because you were saying the Yes Hub starting up, and we have to get other political parties, trade unions, all in together. So I think this was a hustle. But if you were, deputy leader, and your pitch for that, it wouldn't be the SNP that would be leading this referendum. How would we play it?
I truly believe that the other parties support independence, but I believe we're the party of independence. We've campaigned for it for nearly 80 years as a political party. So I think we've got to be at the centre and at the heart of any independence campaign. but we've got to bring other people on board. There's going to be trade unionists, there's going to be people from business out there that have never joined a political party, there's going to be people that have never voted SNP, and we've got to bring them all together again. And I think that's why I'm putting communities at the heart of this pitch, because it is about building a new community in favour of independence. It's not about building a new, stronger political party in favour of independence. It's about bringing people from all political parties together, people from no political parties together, maybe even people from the media, because of course that was a big liability in the 2014 campaign. That's why we've got the National obviously now, because there wasn't a single newspaper in Scotland that supported independence, and we've now got one of those, and that's just another asset, and we need to keep building on that. And as I said, as we go forward in the summer, I think we can.
Sorry to cut you in, we're kind of running starting running out of time, Chris, but one question we ask, and try and keep it as tight as possible, that we're asking everybody: if we had a magic wand and you've won the contest, what's the you said you speak to Nicola, but what is the one thing you would really love to be able to make happen there and then, your first thing that you could make happen if you could do that?
Yeah, it would obviously make Scotland an independent country, but I
meant in your job.
I don't believe in magic, but it would be bringing that campaign back together, people from all across civic society, every political party, no political parties. And can I just make one actual further point?
If you do it very briefly.
There are people on the 19th of September this year, aged 20 years of age, that never voted in the last independence referendum. So there's a whole new generation already coming through, and opinion poll after opinion poll tells you that that younger group of Scottish society, I think in the region of somewhat 75 or 78% support independence.
We can but hope.
We can. On that note, we're out of time, so thanks to both our guests today.
Thank you.
I would just like to point out, before we go to the music that's going to end the show, that you can watch this show again on broadcastscotland.scot, and you can watch all our previous programmes, you can watch our special reports, and you can watch our Here and Now music show. So Broadcasting Scotland aims to get to a position where it's doing 35 hours of broadcasting a week. It can only do that, indeed it can only continue to do this show and all the other shows it currently does with your help. So if you go onto our website, you can see where you can donate. We'd be very grateful if you could do that. broadcastingscotland.scot. So it's a very important project, this, and I think it needs your support, and it'd be very good if you could look on the website, find out a bit about the company itself and its ambitions, and give generously to us as well as to Clara and all the other good causes that are deserving of your support, if you can. But we shall close the show now with a band called Raintown and a video of the band performing.
Their song's called If This Was a Love Song.
We collide. This was a love song, we'd sing it right. This was a story. And did you mean it when you said I could be good enough? And did you mean it when you said I was all you ever needed? I got your picture in my pocket and your number at my fingertips. I've kept all your letters like a locket next to my heart. Could we survive if we tried? Could we hold on before we collide? This was a love song, we'd sing it right. This was a story in black and white. This was a heart it would beat in time with yours tonight. This was a movie, we'd say it right. This was a slow dance, I'd hold you tight. If this is love, it will last until the end of time. Went away last summer on a plane to New Orleans. You sent a promise on a postcard, you were coming back. I know your favorite movie and the thing that makes you laugh. hold on before we collide. This was a love song, we'd sing it right. This was a story in black and white. This was a heart, it will be the time of yours tonight. This was a movie, we'd say it right. This was a slow dance, I hold you tight. If this is love, it will last until the end of time. And come on and say that you want me. And come on and say that you want me. This was another song, we'd sing it right. This was a story in black and white. This was a heart, it will beat in time with yours tonight.